Welcome to Scintillations, the podcast where we explore hot takes on the business of branding, consumers, and culture. Each week, we talk to the top minds from businesses shaping tomorrow, cultural thought leaders, and people with an eye out for what's next. Whether you're a marketing professional, entrepreneur, or simply curious about the forces shaping the world of consumer business, we've got you covered. From the latest trends in consumer behavior to the cutting-edge strategies used by the world's top brands, we'll unpack it all, giving you the insights you'll need to stay ahead of the game. So, join us for scintillating conversations that will help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of modern business, including developments in artificial intelligence tools like this voiceover. And now, your host, award-winning brand builder, Erika first.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Scintillations, where we talk about what's now and what's next in the business of branding, consumers, and culture. Today, I want to talk about media and how the media manipulates us for money. Over the weekend, I saw a couple of situations that involved different media placements, media happenings, advertising, etc., that provoked a very vocal response. And with my years of experience in production, in media, in dealing with celebrities, in dealing with advertising, I thought I could shed some light on some of the situations to kind of clear up a little bit of the controversy, but also pull back the curtain on some of the practices that the media uses, what media is for ultimately, and how sometimes we fall into a trap that is only damaging to us. So I have this slide up here. It says monetizing your emotions at the cost of your well-being, because I'm going to show you the process of how media companies take advantage, how they create situations that are not entirely limpid, and how it affects you in your private life and in your personal well-being. So the second you create an account on any one of the social medias or any one of those platforms, you become either a customer of, the product of, or an employee of that social network. And in several cases, you are all three. Now, how do these companies make money? And I think that's the first thing that we need to remember is that LinkedIn, uh, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, these are all for-profit companies. Therefore, their interest in regulating content is up to a point, right? They're subject to laws, but as long as what they are doing is not criminal and it helps them make money, then that is a strategy for them. So there is not a tremendous amount of, let's say, proactive regulation that these companies are willing to do. And I'll talk about this in a second because I've had personal experience with this. But these companies make money in different ways, right? So they make money advertising, which means that they need you as a consumer, as a viewer, to stay on the platform as long as possible so they can show you as many ads as they can. And actually, YouTube, who has now introduced a monthly subscription, they've had it for a while, but they're really going hard on it now. It's $11.99. And what they do is they just bombard you with advertising to the point that you're so frustrated that you'll actually consider paying the $11.99 a month. And once upon a time, creators were able to control whether they monetized, whether they didn't monetize, where they put their ads. And YouTube has kind of taken almost all of that power back. The only thing you can decide on now is if you want videos mid-roll. But sometimes even if your channel is not monetized, they'll still do advertising on it. So So their goal there is to get you to consume as much media as possible so they can show you as much advertising as possible. We've seen also with Meta now introducing their verification process at a premium. It's like $20.99 or something, which was started by Twitter. And now everyone else is experimenting with that. TikTok does not have a payment subscription yet, but I wouldn't rule it out in the future. Tips is another way that they monetize. So they created live stream platforms where the idea is, especially on TikTok really has monetized this beyond belief. If you can keep your audience on longer, that gives them more of an opportunity to tip you, to leave you money. And with TikTok, they take 50% of the tips. YouTube has a 70-30 creator house split for the time being. I'm sure that will change in time. I think it might be 65-35. But anyway, it keeps getting a little bit less and less. The idea is the longer you can keep people online, the more money they will pay you, the more money you are making for let's call them the house, right? Account promotion. One of this is something that Facebook started that actually, in my opinion, was the beginning of the end for Facebook. But now TikTok is starting to roll this out also, where once upon a time, creators would put their content onto the platform. It would go to a very large percentage of their followers. And what they start doing is closing the faucets on that and making it harder and harder for you to reach the number of followers that you had or that you were reaching beforehand. And so in order to make up that lack of audience, the idea is that you will then invest to promote your own content, because especially if you are an influencer and you're making contracts on the side with guaranteed engagement rates or guaranteed post distribution, in order for that to happen, you're going to have to keep paying because they keep shutting down the distribution. So there's lots of different ways that they make money, but the whole thing revolves around keeping you, creator, and keeping you, viewer, on the platform as long as possible. Now, as I said, if your content is doing well and it isn't criminal, they don't care. I have seen on TikTok people taking entire channels from YouTube, cutting up the videos of those people that are not them, right? So let's say Jane has an account on YouTube. I am Mary. I take all of Jane's content, I clip it into 60 seconds, and I make an account. It goes viral, very popular. I can monetize that. Now, this is not legal, but if no one has filed an official claim, then it stays. That I've seen people take other people's content, shift the voice a little, like they will change the tone, clip it up so that it doesn't get flagged by YouTube's AI platforms that can tell if it's copyrighted or if it's duplicated content, and make entire successful channels just stealing other people's content. I have reported this multiple times to YouTube as a user, but also as a professional, and nothing is ever done about it. So why? Why? Because those videos have 6,000 views. They have 130 interactions. And ultimately, that is the goal, to keep people online, keep people watching, keep people interacting. I've broken down sort of how the process works, right? And how the business model works. You create the content. It's intended to get eyeballs because they sell cost per thousand. And you make these ads. They are designed to get engagement. And actually, the more engagement the ad gets, this is favored by the platform because it allows for inventory optimization, right? And then they do auction advertising. So let's say you want to reach 18 to 25-year-olds, right? And it's Christmas time and there's only so much space. Well, I'm going to bid this much. I'm going to bid 5. I'm going to bid 750. I'm going to bid 10. They get 10. They take the top bid and they put it on one of their widest distribution films or one of the videos that goes the best, because obviously you reach a much broader audience quickly. So instead of having to put the same ad 15 times on smaller videos, I just throw it up once. That creates a lot more inventory for me. So the more the more engagement there is on a video, the better it is for them because it's just easier, makes my life easier, right? So how they measure which videos they like and which videos they don't like are not necessarily the videos that only get views or content that gets views, but content that creates engagement. That's comments, that's likes, that's shares, because that means that it's triggered you in a way to have some kind of emotional response enough to engage with this, which means that it's probably very sticky and it's probably more memorable than the weather. That's a perfect example. You can watch the weather, but people are not actively engaged. I've seen it, I go past it. But if I'm mad and I'm fighting about something, then I'm more emotionally engaged. And the content that I'm looking at is probably going to be stickier. Now, I want to talk about celebrity paparazzi images. I have worked for over 18 years in production, dealing with fashion and luxury companies and dealing with celebrities and influencers. And what I can tell you is that I would say 80% of the images that you see in a magazine, online, whatever, of a celebrity are in some way, shape, or form paid for by someone, right? I have negotiated contracts where the person would be our spokesperson, and included in that spokesperson contract, there were 5 paparazzi opportunities where we would schedule a time that was convenient for them to have a photographer there to take a picture of them in front of our store, going into our store, coming out of our store, wearing something from that store, or wearing one of the brands in the company. And then this is a very sort of subtle form of advertising, right? You see it happening, but you don't know that it's it's advertising. And what's interesting about this Bottega Veneta campaign, which got launched last week, which is, let's say, a step further beyond what Balenciaga already did in 2018. It had an interesting process because obviously, first they had the contract with the celebrity. These pictures appeared on various social media outlets as paparazzi pictures, so papped pictures. And you probably saw them on some of the main sort of celebrity gossip campaigns without realizing that they were head to toe in Bottega Veneta. So it was released as press. And then a few months later, it comes out as an ad campaign, which everyone says, oh my gosh, that's so brilliant, right? How did they do that? Oh, to take these pictures that were paparazzi pictures and use them as a campaign is so clever. Now, it's a very clever next step, but this was very carefully orchestrated and managed and contracted. You don't just call up ASAP Rocky and say, "Hey, are you free next week?" There are legal contracts, there are price negotiations. I have spent in some cases up to 2 years negotiating a celebrity contract. So these things can take time. They look casual, they look accidental, but in most cases, and I would say in this one because it's so carefully curated, there's in those celebrity pictures, there's something being sold. One of the other famous examples that may or may not have been called out was a picture of Meghan Markle wearing a Newcom biosignal processing disc. The picture of her with her arm like sort of awkwardly extended was clearly done so that we could get a picture of the product. I obviously don't know this to be certain. Based on my experience in the industry, I would say this is a paid promotion. This is one of the ways that you're being marketed to without necessarily being aware of it, right? Maybe you look at something and say, oh, look, that new Chanel bag. That is one of the most classic ways that brands market. They'll send a product out to a bunch of celebrities. And in some cases, they'll use it of their own accord. In many cases, they're paid to do so. I hear this a lot, like, "Oh, well, they don't need press." Of course you need press because celebrities exist thanks to conversation. If no one is talking about you in a celebrity culture, in a conversational culture, the question is, do you even exist, right? I heard someone speak about a recording contract where this person had tremendous talent. They were very interesting, good sound, but they didn't yet have 1 million followers on Instagram. And so the record company took a pass because they're like, you either come with a built-in audience or I'm not interested. I need to know you can sell from day one. And so press is one of the ways you communicate that you matter and that you count. So celebrities are very active about intentionally organizing paparazzi photos so that they can stay in the spotlight. I love Taylor Swift to death. Every time we get a picture of Taylor on the street, it is pre-negotiated, usually with Backgrid. If you go to Backgrid's Instagram account, you'll see all those pictures. Anytime you get a full frontal of or like you can see the celebrity full on, those are most likely contracted appointments. They do it to stay in the press or they're promoting something, right? Either they have a tour coming up or a movie coming up. You want to stay front of mind so that when whatever the product comes out, you pay attention to it. They could be deflecting from something else. I have seen some absolutely brilliant PR campaigns that were developed using keywords to bury one story by co-opting the keyword from that story and turning it into something else. And you have to do that by showing up. There needs to be picture. The celebrity has to create a story. And of course, if they're selling a product, if they've had a new product launch, they want to be photographed as much as possible. Now, the other thing that happened last week was that there was a lot of attention around a Zara campaign, which undoubtedly was very poor timing, clearly tone deaf. However, I want to speak to the intentionality of that campaign. And what I can tell you is that production timelines in fashion are very long. I would brief a campaign to an agency in April or May that was going to launch in store and in market the February or March of the year after. So they usually have about 11 months production time. You can reduce that, especially if you don't have a celebrity or you're not using a very famous photographer. You don't have complicated sets or need to be on location. The product is available. But there are so many variables that go into the development of a campaign that it's very hard to get something out the door very quickly. So again, as I said, this Zara campaign was really poorly timed. Probably someone should have seen it before and said, what is that? Knowing the production timelines, I don't believe there was any intentionality whatsoever in that campaign. There are companies that intentionally create controversy for clicks. There was that time that Taylor Swift came out against Spotify and announcing that she would be going to Apple Music, right? You didn't know she was not on Spotify and not on Apple Music until that sort of controversy got created. And then they solved the problem. So they will manufacture controversy to get your attention. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Bud Light engaging Dylan Mulvaney, intentionally trying to cause controversy and conversation did not work out well for them. Others are just tone deaf. One of the most famous campaigns, that people continue to sort of poke fun at is the Pepsi and Kendall Jenner with the Black Lives Matter movement, which was poor taste. But what you can be guaranteed of is that media properties will always cultivate controversy, right? If you have two stories on your table, one that is salacious and will get people to comment, react, get angry about, you are always going to go with that one over the feel good story. Why? Because it drives attention and clicks. Now, what's the problem with this? Our brains have a negativity bias, right? We default towards the negative, and we are far more attentive to negative information. We are far more attentive to bad things happening around us, and they rile us up more. The energetic excitation of anger is much greater than that of peace and joy, right? So that creates sticky emotions. When you're angry, you are more active. When you are peaceful, you are passive. So the idea is if I can keep triggering you into being angry, you'll continue to interact with what's in front of you, right? How many times have you seen people like leaving trolling comments? And even though you know better, you still go and respond because there's a part of you, your brain, that's like, no, fight for justice, fight for what's right, say what you need to say. And ultimately, this is done to what? Keep you on the platform longer, keep you reading, keep you researching, keep you commenting, keep you boosting engagement so that you have a bigger audience to sell to and inventory, inventory efficiency. Here's the problem is that our brain has only so many F's to give, literally, right? You cannot get mad all day, every day, without there being physiological, psychological, and emotional consequences. I have talked about this many times when I was talking about stress and how the body works. We only have one stress response. We don't have two, one for serious things and one for not so serious things. The brain and the body react the same every time it is triggered towards anger, upset, injustice, fear, whatever. And that means that you're having the same physiological damage because our systems are not wired to handle being stressed all day. The stress, the fight or flight system has evolved to protect us, to keep us safe, but it hasn't evolved yet to adapt to a world in which we are triggered from morning until night. And what this does is, in order for you to protect yourself, once you are over triggered and overstimulated, is you retreat, right? And what ends up happening is the outrage fatigue leads to apathy. So, exactly the moment when you need to fight for something or you want to fight for something, you literally can't because you have given all of your emotional energy, you've been spending it in places that didn't deserve it. So I did this podcast episode specifically to shine a light on the sort of different manipulation tactics that happen in the media, but also to suggest a tremendous amount of critical thinking when you come into contact with anything that's online. Ask yourself, who's making money out of my reaction here? And is this the most appropriate space for me to invest my anger? Or is there somewhere else that I can be spending my finite amount of F's in a way that will be more productive and more useful? I hope this was interesting. I hope thought provoking. Again, the knowing that this process is going on and that it is there to monetize your emotions and to trigger you uh, into submission, literally, I feel a personal responsibility as someone who works in the field to at least shine a light on this so you can make better decisions when you are out there in the social media universe. Wishing you a very happy holiday season, and I will see you at the next episode.